We are live. Hello, everyone. I am Brandy Keeler, Assistant Director of Admissions at the College for Creative Studies here in Detroit. Welcome to another CCS Alumni Live. CCS Alumni Live is a weekly conversation where we talk with graduates from the College for Creative Studies about their journey from high school to career. These conversations are a great way to learn about the different ways that artist journeys could look, but also these are a great opportunity for you to have your questions about pursuing a creative path answered. And today we're talking about paths in photography with an amazing alumni, someone who I consider one of my best friends, Cydni Elledge. So while we're waiting for folks to join the live, while we're waiting for Cydni to join us, I'm going to read her bio, and then we will go ahead and get started with CCS Alumni Live. So, Cydni Elledge is a photographer from Detroit, Michigan, whose love for art and natural talent transformed a hobby into a profession. Since earning her BFA or Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in photography from the College for Creative Studies in 2016, Cydni has had her work published in many publications, including the New York Times, the Detroit News, Vogue Arabia, Repeller, and MFON Women on the African Diaspora. Cydni's photographs are featured on Grand Isle River in Detroit, as well as her work has been featured at Photoville in Brooklyn, New York. Cydni's commitment to the community and love for her hometown speaks through her work, as much of it captures the essence of Detroit and focuses on the unfiltered everyday lives of its residents. So without further ado, I am going to add Cydni to our live. We can get our conversation started with her today. Y'all don't know, I'm so excited. Hi, Cydni.
Hi, Randy.
I love you.
I love you too. How are you?
I'm good. I am so excited for this conversation. Because as I said before I read your bio, you're my best friend. You're one of the people I love most in this world. And I love a lot of people. You at the top of the list. So I'm just really excited to catch up with you and talk about your journey as an artist, as a photographer. And where I want to start the conversation today is really just a really basic question before we even jump into like what you're doing right now. I want to know how you identify yourself as a photographer, because there's so many different types of photography, right? There's commercial and fine art and, fashion, and there's so many documentary photojournalism. And so I know you've done a lot of different things. Do you have one sort of area of photography you say that's the type of photographer you are, or how do you describe yourself as a photographer?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a whole lot lately. How should I describe myself? And I just call myself a photographer. I think I'm leaning towards photojournalism, especially with more of the assignments that have been coming my way. So I don't know. I mean, I might add to that. I can't say that I'll only be a photojournalist, but right now I think I'm kind of comfortable saying I'm a photojournalist.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about some of the assignments that have been coming your way. What kind of work have you been doing recently as a photographer and photojournalist?
Yeah, so it happened, like it was a shift, ironically, during the pandemic. The protests, they kind of became a little bigger than just, the Black Lives Matter. Not to say bigger than that, but you know what I mean, like hiring Black, things like that. So there was this list that went around with photographers of color throughout the 50 states, I believe. And one day I was scrolling on Instagram and I just saw my name on it. And a little after that, I started, getting emails from, certain people, even other photographers reached out to see if I could take some of their assignments, because I know it's not just my story. I know a lot of Black artists, kind of went up last year. So, I started shooting for the New York Times, and a little later, Vogue Arabia reached out. I covered Representative Rashida Tlaib. Repeller did some cool assignments with those, as you can see on my feed. Who else have I shot? Oh, during the elections, I got to work for the Associated Press. So it's just been a lot of different stuff coming my way. So I'm happy about it. I'm proud of it. I just pray it keeps coming.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, a lot of other artists, even besides the wonderful editors who I've worked with, have reached out to me, and I've done the same. Whenever I get the opportunity to, plug one of them and show that love back, I try to do that too.
That's so exciting. And it seems like, I know in your bio, it talks a lot about like some of the work you do to cover like the unfiltered lives of Detroiters. And I think that's something that it would make sense that you would get a lot of requests for journalism work because your photos are so like real. Like I feel like the way that you capture people, especially, Black people, is just like, these are real. Like I can reach in and touch and feel this person through the way that you photograph them. So it's just amazing to hear that you have these types of opportunities. And this is a weird question. Some people don't like answering this, but do you have a photo assignment or project that you've worked on that's been your favorite so far?
I wouldn't say my favorite. Some have stood out a little more. Oh yeah, and I also shot for The Intercept. I really like that story. I covered a young man named Shamoy Edwards. I think that link is still in my bio. So that's something really, really great to check out. He wants, his story to go as far as it can. What was the question?
Your favorite? Well, you said not favorite.
Yeah.
Yes,
some stick out a little more. That's one that stuck out. And then I did one this summer. It was my first or second assignment with the Times. There was a man that I covered. He was an ex-Marine, and he almost was jailed due to like a really big fight that took place on a ship. Race relations. So that's one that I think about kind of on a daily basis. I thought about that the other day. It really stuck with me. I also covered 3 siblings who were orphaned during the pandemic. Both their parents passed due to the virus. So those are the 2 that stick out the most. And then sometimes I get to have fun, like the ones with Man Repeller. I got to even cover my Aunt Mamie, who was a part of that, and told her perspective on the story. I think she's 93 or 4, maybe even a little older.
That was your aunt?
Yeah. Yep. Along with, a few other very nice ladies. So yeah, they've been interesting, and it's so funny. That's something that I prayed about. I only prayed about it one time. I was just like, God, please just give me fun assignments that I want to do, that I can grow in. And I kind of forgot about it. And then I thought back, like, wow, that was answered.
Yeah. And in such a powerful way. Girl, I'm not gonna get emotional with this IG live. So tell me this, Cydni. It seems like you mentioned, due to some of the I call it the racial pandemic that we've experienced over the past year, because there's definitely the COVID pandemic, but there's also a racial pandemic happening in our country. Due to that, you've seen an increase in requests for work, but you've been working prior to that. How do you filter or choose which assignments you take or don't take? Do you take everything that comes your way? Are there things that you turn down? What's your criteria?
That's a good question. I don't think I've had anything. Well, I take that back. Some people have reached out afterwards, maybe like 1 or 2 people, and I'll send it to maybe Kara, Document in Detroit, or even like my mom. Take a look at this email. I don't really like what they're saying. It just kind of depends on the delivery, but most of the assignments that come my way are really good opportunities, thankfully. So.
That's because it's filtered through that prayer you said.
You know what I'm saying?
And do you consider yourself like a freelance photographer?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
So you work for your own boss.
I am.
With that being the case, and we talk a lot about this because there are a lot of alum, even if they're in industry, they have something that they're doing for themselves if they're not solely working for themselves. What would you say called you into doing freelance versus being ingrained in, say, a company or agency?
Well, I haven't gotten that opportunity, but if it came my way and I learned, more about it, and it was something that worked for me, I would. I thought about that the other day. What does that process look like? Honestly, I'm not really sure. Like it hasn't come toward me yet, but I would be interested in it. But right now, it's a good learning experience, you know, to be your own boss. It builds, you know, discipline and, you know, learn about business, learn about finance and just, you know, a work-life balance, especially being at home all the time. That's, you know, a bit challenging. But, you know, I look forward to that. Maybe I will be represented one day.
That'd be cool. But whatever works best for you, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
okay, I have one more question about
Yeah.
present day photographer Cydni, because I've just been really interested in this concept for different artists. Like, aside from you talked about how the pandemic and how this time has increased your, you know, your call outs because you listed as a bomb Black photographer because you are. But what are some of the other ways that the pandemic has impacted your work? I know a lot of people, we're working remote or from home. We're not even in spaces with people, but that seems like that would be difficult as a photographer. So how has that shifted the way that you work?
A lot. Normally, I would just kind of be out on the streets, you know, photographing and meeting people. But, you know, now we're all confined to this space. And on top of that, right before we shut down, I had a baby, you know, my first had Jameson. So, you know, being quarantined just with my family, I've been documenting them. Kind of took a break from it a little bit, you know, motherhood kind of wrapped up
Maternity leave.
all of my time, all of my energy, every fiber of my being, you know, has been wrapped up in that a lot. So, but I have been covering Jameson and I too. So that's a series that I'm looking forward to expanding with video and photography. So, you know, I don't know when it'll see the light of day. But it's just trying to, I don't want to say make do with what you have, but you know, this is where we are. I can still create even, you know, in these four walls. So, you know, and still trying to think about things I want to do when it's safe again too.
Yeah.
And thinking about how I can
Powerful to
work
hear.
even when I leave, you know, every now and then, you know, how I can work, who's kind of safe to go around, who's not. So,
Right.
you know, it's, you
That's
know.
the thing that I think about for people who are doing work that requires in-person interaction. Like I did a photo shoot earlier in the summer for a friend's brand, and I'm just like, well, how are we doing this? Because we're gonna be in the same room and like, yes, mask, but I don't know. I don't know a photographer. I don't know the
Right.
you know the assistant or whatever. So it definitely seems like there are a lot of moving parts. But I think it's powerful to hear you say essentially that like you can create as a photographer who tells stories using photography, like you can do that anywhere, right? With whatever you have access to, because the stories don't stop because you're at home. You know, life has stories wherever you are. So that's powerful to hear.
Yeah.
And the pictures of your son are so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about all the amazing things that you've been doing in your career to date and some of the things that are highlights for you. I want to, though, take a step in my imaginary time machine and throw it back to when we first, not even when we first met each other, because that was a long time ago. We know each other forever. But throw it back to high school and tell me a little bit about what your career aspirations were back then. What was it that you thought you'd be doing in high school?
So I went to Henry Ford, and when I was a sophomore, I got into Votech, and I went to the cosmetology program. I was going to go graphic design, but I don't know. You know, my love towards hair back then. I used to practice on you. So
and that's why I wear a scarf now, because I don't have another hairstylist as good. I swear.
Yeah, so that's the route that I was going to take. I wanted to have a chain of salons. I worked in a shop for a couple, maybe like a year and a half post graduation. And I remember my granddad called me. This is when I was still in high school, though. And he said that God told him that it was not, that doing hair was not my calling. And, you know, I didn't really have much of a response. It was kind of disappointing because, you know, this is something that I love. What do you mean it's not for me? Yes, it is. I'm going to school for this. I love it. You know, but as I grew and I, you know, went to Wayne State for film and minored in photography back then, you know, what he said came to pass. You know what I mean? He was right. But, you know, I thank him for kind of opening my mind up to, you know, what else may be out there. But yeah, if you would have asked me back then, I would have had about 3 salons, you know, 6 miles, 7 miles doing my thing. But, you know, God had other plans and I'm happy I'm here.
I'm happy for you too.
Thank you.
So tell me then, if your, aspiration was to do hair and then you transition, thanks to your grandfather's advice, you're fine. We are in a pandemic at home. Arrow has busted into the room for so many meetings, it doesn't even make sense. So I completely understand. But you got this wisdom from your grandfather, and what about what he told you made you decide to take that first step at Wayne State with film and photography specifically? Like, of all the other things that you could study or explore, why photography?
Well, it's something my dad kind of instilled in me. He always loved, messing with Photoshop. He would take pictures, before I was born, but he would shoot a lot. But he kind of got caught up with work, so he tried to kind of pass it along to myself and all my siblings, and I think I gravitated towards it the most. And I probably maybe around maybe before 11th or 12th grade, probably when I was in middle school, I used to kind of pay attention to directors, like music directors. We watched so much BT, but then I always wanted to know who directed the video. Melina Masukis, she directed Queen and Slim, not last year before last. But I just developed an eye for recognizing her work, and that kind of got me going. I was still into hair, but yeah, that kind of sparked my interest in it, and it kind of just grew from there. And then when I transferred to CCS, I just decided to take up photography full time.
And what was it that made you decide to transfer?
Oh, girl, I wasn't doing so good at Wayne State.
What was going on?
I don't know. I just wasn't really a good student. I was doing good in my film classes, and I love my photography classes too. But everything else, no. So I had to, I just wanted to change. Got a clean slate, and you inspired me to go to CCS. So I'm happy I made that change. I'm happy about that. The instructors were awesome. I got into documenting Detroit while I was still there. That's an opportunity that they told us about when I was about to graduate. So it was a good choice, a great choice.
Can you tell me a little bit more about? So we're walking through the doors of CCS now. So my time machine, we moved a little bit forward in time. We're at you transferred from Wayne State. We're at CCS. And I want to actually come back to documenting Detroit, because I think that's a cool opportunity. I think another one of the fellows from that program was on the live just a second ago. But, you talked about that being an opportunity that shared later at the time there. When you first started at CCS, what would you say was the major difference here than I'm not in the interest of bashing other schools, but what would you say was the main difference that allowed you to stay with the program and continue?
At CCS. Because I left Wayne State. I think I was being exposed to more art. I still had to do my regular general education classes, but, on top of that, it was drawing, it was painting. I went in, basically shooting right away. And I was, growing up a little bit. I think I did 2 years at Wayne State, so I was a little older and took it a little more serious too. So I can't blame it directly on the
that's what I'm saying. I'm sure it wasn't just that.
No, it was me. So I was a little older, and I wanted it a little more. I was more interested, more focused. So
I think, and I'm glad that you shared that. It's helpful, I think, for students to know, like, these different artists paths, like the point at which you may be ready to pursue this, or your interest is at the level that would allow you to pursue it. It varies for people, right? I've had some students who are like, oh, well, I'm 18, and if I don't do this now, I'll never do. I'm like, that is not the case.
It feels like that, though.
Yeah, it does at the time. Yeah. But I'm glad that you shared, like, well, this was my experience, and you're doing amazing things, so, like, it did not take anything away. So, okay, let's talk a little bit more about what you were learning at CCS, and I'm particularly interested in your documenting Detroit experience. Like, what can you tell us a little bit more about what that experience is and how it worked?
Yeah, sorry. So I got the opportunity. I think it was Carlos Diaz, who I think he's still a professor at CCS.
Yep.
Well, you would know. I think he brought it to our class, I believe, because he's one of the mentors for them. And I applied, and I was really hoping and praying that it worked out, because I was about to graduate. And, you kind of want some focus, upon just branching out into the world. And I remember the day he told me that I was accepted. I was so excited. And it's ran by Kara Schaefer and Alan Chen. They are both super duper amazing organizers, photographers. They both write as well. And sorry, it's Nas. um, so yeah, it presented a lot of opportunities. So I continued my thesis work with them, which was documenting young Black men around Detroit. So it gave me an opportunity to, continue to push that work, and it gave me another community of artists to be around, because you have that at school. You have your critiques and everything, which is one thing I miss about CCS. And documenting Detroit, just having that group of artists to kind of be vulnerable, show your work to, get some feedback, give some feedback, learn how to take criticism. So yeah, that's one of the things that I loved about that. And it's kind of like the gift that just keeps on giving. They'll still reach out, tell you about opportunities, tell you about, who's looking for this. I think you might be good for that. So it's been great. And they have this intensive week at the end of your fellowship, and they fly like really amazing top-notch photographers and photo editors out to give you feedback on your work. And I have really long-lasting relationships from that. That's how I got my assignment with WDET Frame By, when I did the Downtown Boxing Gym Youth Program.
I love that series.
Thank you. Yeah, that's where I met Courtney Hurt. She was so helpful in that. And even a lot of other things that have come my way have stemmed from that. So it's been super awesome. I would recommend any documentary photographer, if you're interested, to apply. I don't know if they did 2020. I'm not sure. It was so strange. I'm not sure, but whenever that rolls around again, I would definitely recommend applying.
I think that's awesome to hear that something that started as an opportunity that you access during school has had such a lasting effect. Like the connections that you've had, keep the chain keeps building off of that. I think that's so awesome to hear, because I think that is a fear of a lot of students, is like, okay, well, at what point will I have access to my industry or do something that gets me there, right? Well, I have to figure it out once I graduate. So to hear that, you, like many students, like have something that you access while you're at school that helps to make that transition easier is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of speaks to, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, was that with documenting Detroit, was that also where you had your work projected on the DIA for like when they did the display?
Yeah. And I think they did that twice at two different locations. I want to say it was the DIA and later on Charles H. Wright, I believe. But yeah,
I feel like that's a huge deal.
It is. And my work on Grand on River, like they work tirelessly for photographers, for us to, get our voices heard, get our work seen, and, just to really make it. They are awesome. Now, I don't know what it would have looked like had I not, applied and got that fellowship. So it's been really awesome, especially coming straight out of school. That was perfect timing.
Okay. I'm learning about your journey. I'm your friend. I'm still learning. You can never learn too much about someone you care about. So a question I ask often on these alumni lives, I'm going to ask this, and then I'm going to take a break for those of you who are tuning in. I know people jump in and out of these, and a lot of people watch the recording, but I do want to take a break for anybody who's watching live and has questions. Make sure to drop your questions in the question box or here in the chat on IG Live, and we'll make sure Cydni gets a chance to answer those. But while, if anyone has questions while they're formulating those questions, a question that I have is, what is one thing you learned or gained from CCS that's really impacted you and your life as a creative person?
Probably to take advantage of what's in front of you. Like our professors, our instructors, and I don't mean take advantage like, just take.
Not negative, right?
Right. But whenever I needed help, they stayed after and they talked to me for however long I needed. You know what I mean? So it's just not, I'm sorry, it's driving me up a wall.
That's
So,
your pet, just for people who are watching.
right, right.
Not in Cydni's house right now.
I'm sorry, but yeah, I was just taking advantage of that. Even after I graduated, one day I just popped up and I went to go see if one of my older instructors was, in class, Bill Valicenti, who was super duper helpful. And I went and just caught up with him, and he talked to me for such a long time about even more steps that I could take, who I can contact, how to reach out. So I think that's one of the things that I enjoy most and that I learned most, and I wasn't scared to ask. While I was there too. You never know what that information, what that's gonna do for you. So that was awesome, and just exploring different mediums. I went through a lot of my work and just the different types of photographs that we did, like print on metal and Van Dyke Browns and cyanotype. Just having fun with art. Period. It kind of inspired me to want to go back to that.
That's awesome to hear. I feel like I typically give the advice to students of like take advantage of opportunities, mostly because like you're paying for it. Like all the people when you're attending school, you're paying for it. But like the bigger benefit, aside from like getting your money's worth, like that's one small side of it. The big side of it is like that's what these resources are here for. It's here to benefit you as you grow. And I like that you spoke to like the different types of photography that you experimented with too, because I know there are students who come in like, this is what I want to do. I want to do fashion. So I'm just going to come in with this. And I think it's cool that you mentioned like how the program gets you to play with different things, right? Because it's yes, it teaches you how to be a great photographer, but I think being a good artist, a good creative thinker is a big part of that too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like just exploring different mediums. I had to paint, I had to draw. It wasn't easy, but it was a fun experience.
Yeah. Tell me this, because in high school you wanted to be a hairstylist, you wanted to own salons. So did you ever take art classes before CCS?
No.
I mean, besides the photography or film classes at Wayne State?
No, never. I played the piano, so I think the creative spirit was always kind of fizzling. But no formal art classes.
So how was that when it came time? Because I know our drawing classes, there's some like, how was that transition for you from going from never taking like a drawing
it was
or
hard.
painting art class to foundations?
It was hard. Cliff
Harris.
Yes. I can't remember why our drawing instructor, I don't know, he left for a while. And anyway, Cliff came and oh my God, he was so helpful. He was so helpful. He just was able to break it down a little better for me. And, I still have a lot of that stuff. I really do. So yeah, that was fun.
I need to FaceTime you
I
after
started off
this.
rocky, but it was a growing process.
Look, I'm gonna FaceTime you after this live because I want to see your drawings. I ain't never seen nothing you drew.
Oh, I don't know. I like them.
They got me through. I passed the class enough to move forward.
I graduated.
Oh, that's too funny. We'll do show and tell because I ain't proud of mine either. I was in design. So let me see if I don't see that we have any questions in the chat box here.
Okay.
Let me check my little Q&A box. I feel like somebody's grandma trying to check Instagram here. Okay. Hi, Chelsea. Another creative in the family is here on the live. All right. So I don't see that we have questions from the audience. Every time I say that and I start to move on, that's when people ask questions. But I'm going to ask my last question, which to me is my favorite question. And it's knowing what you know now about your journey as a photographer, the work that you've done, the impact that you've had with your creativity. If you had access to a time machine to go back and talk to 17, 18-year-old Cydni at Henry Ford High School, what would you tell yourself then as advice for pursuing your creative path?
I'm sorry, you said if I could go back to 17, 18.
Yeah, if you could go back to high school and give yourself advice about pursuing your creative path with what you know now, what
Mm.
advice would you give yourself?
I would say to my younger self to take it more seriously. I wish I would have taken it more seriously sooner, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but to not take yourself in life so serious, to have fun with it and have fun and explore your medium a little more. I
Mm-hmm.
think that, yeah, I think that's the main piece of advice that I would give my younger self. But everything plays out the
For a
way that
reason.
it's supposed to. So I mean,
Mhm.
hindsight, I can say, oh, I probably would have been so much further if I would have did this and that. But everything in divine order, so it's
Mm-hmm.
all good.
I definitely agree. Definitely agree. It's all in divine order. It happens when it needs to happen. But I
Yeah,
think the beautiful thing is that these conversations are shared with younger people who could use that advice. You know,
yeah,
somebody could hear your story and see, well, if Cydni was able to do all of this, if I
hmm,
take her advice, I wonder where I'll be too.
yeah,
So I think that's amazing advice too, because there's balance to it. I've heard the advice of like, practice self-care, rest, and that. And I've also heard the advice of like, you just gotta push yourself and make it happen. But I
hmm,
think it's important to keep both in mind, right? Of like,
it
take
is.
your work seriously, this
Yeah,
matters, but like in life there's so many things that matter, so
hmm,
have some grace. I think
yeah,
that's beautiful.
yeah.
All right, I see a question has come in. Ooh, so I'm going to read it and then put it on the screen. Do you have any advice for creatives that are maybe struggling with believing in their art? How can they overcome doubt and move into a more confident space? That's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I'm gonna answer that. Chelsea, if you're watching, Jameson's awake. If you could please go and get him, please.
Getting
Um,
called out.
um, yeah, and I think that's an ongoing battle. I think that's something
Mm-hmm.
that you constantly have to, give yourself reassurance. And I think a lot of it may come from comparison. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just be comfortable with what you make. It doesn't always have to be good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to look like hers or his, but you'll grow, you'll get better, you'll be proud of your journey. Um, yeah, don't compare. And a lot of times, even now, like I'll see somebody's work and I'll love it, and I feel like I have to go and make photography like that. But even if I fall deeply in love with it, I think it's the most beautiful thing. It doesn't mean that I have to do exactly that. I can, I have that freedom to do so and explore it if I want, but I have to find my own voice, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's, how you keep growing as an artist. So,
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Amazing advice. Yeah, I think that it's funny. I was just working with a coworker on a presentation about portfolio prep, and one of the big points is like, sometimes done is better than good. Like perfectionism will destroy your creativity. And as Rachel said on the call, comparison is the thief of all joy, right?
mhm.
Um, so I think that's super helpful insight. If you're watching this live or the recording, I hope you're taking notes because Cydni's dropping these jewels for you all. And I promise you they will help. So I guess with that, unless there are other questions from the audience, I'd love to know where we can tell people to go follow you and your work and see more about the stories that you're telling through your lens. Should
Sure,
people
yeah.
follow you? What's the website? Where are we going?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is just my first and last name, Cydni Elledge, and that is my website too, just cydnielledge.com. So it's a new year. I'm gonna do a lot better with posting and getting my things out there. Y'all know we always say that, but I'm for real this time. Yep. So those two places are where you can find me.
All
And
right, you
thank
heard
you,
it
Brandy,
here.
for this opportunity. I love you to death. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to do this and sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your insights with everyone on the call here and everyone who will watch this, I know that what you've gone through in your journey is going to be helpful to so many students who look like you, who are on a similar journey, on a similar path, and you're going to help guide them in a beautiful way. So I appreciate you for your inspiration, for your guidance, and for your friendship, because I just love you.
I know, I love you too. Thank you. I hope I answered these questions well. I always get so nervous about interviews and answering questions. I always feel like I don't answer the questions well. But
you answered all the questions I had. Oh, everything is checked off my list. Cydni, thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in live with us today. Thank you all for checking out CCS Alumni Live. We do this every week, so please, one thing I need to get better at, so you talk about things to get better at social media, I'm going to get better at shouting out the next time we'll have an IG Live. So if you want to continue watching conversations like this, where alumni are sharing their journey from high school to career, make sure you tune in next Tuesday, February 9th at 4:30 p.m. We'll be talking with Stephanie Buer about her journey. But Cydni, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, everyone. Stay blessed, be safe, and I love you.
Thanks. I'll talk to you later, Brand. Thanks,
Talk to you
everybody.
soon. Bye, everyone. Have a great night.